Niels Pflaeging. I believe most of you know him by his well-known bestseller book, Organized for Complexity. But he is also a passionate advocate for profound change in organizations and a new breed of leadership. And today he will share some insights. He will give us some clues about solving the transformation puzzle and give us some info about making a whole organization decentralized. Hi, Niels. It's good to see you.
Hi, Emre. Thank you both for the introductions.
Yeah.
The Turkish language continues to be a mystery to me, but thank you for the introductions. Yes.
Perfect. I guess it's been 8 years since the last time you've been here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you've been here at 2014 Agile Turkey Summit. So how do you feel about it? It's been 8 years.
Yes, it feels good. I think the whole thing has grown, but there's something disturbing. The last when I spoke at Agile Turkey 8 years ago, I had a leg broken. One of my legs was broken, so traveling to Istanbul was hard. Today my legs are gone. No, they're here, but the whole format is much different. At the time we were in a place together, and this time it's online. And I published a book in Turkish as well since the time.
Wow, it's the first time I saw it.
People have to buy it, of course. This is the marketing thing I had to do.
Great news. So I guess all of our participants are looking forward for your speech. So we are heading over to you. The stage is yours, Niels.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. And thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here again at this event. So yeah, it has been 8 years since I spoke at Agile Turkey for the last time. But I can share good news. I think we have solved a part of the agility riddle since the last time. Yeah. Can I start? Is everything okay? Everything said? Can I start for real?
Yeah, you can start, please.
Good. So this is it today. I will speak to you online. Okay, you cannot see my body really, but that's okay. I brought this new undigital technology with me, the flip chart. And today, from me, you will not get any PowerPoints, which is strange. You will see a lot of PowerPoint probably today, but no PowerPoints from me. I will do this analog style. So I will write things on the flip chart, on the paper, and I will talk to you this way. And I hope that I can give you a glimpse into the future of work. I like this topic for the conference. Welcome to the future of work. This is really my suggestion, my proposal to you. Let's go to the future of work now. Let's not really talk about the future, you know, next year, in 5 years, in 10 years. Let's make the future of work happen today. And I think the time is here to take entire organizations agile. In fact, I know that we can do it. In the trailer at the beginning of this conference today, you saw this quote by Pablo Picasso. If you can imagine it, you can make it happen. It is a reality in a way. If we can imagine it, it is real. Most of you will have gotten in touch with Scrum or Agile or Kanban and those techniques and methods. And maybe from that experience of getting into Agile, you notice that there is a first stage in which you cannot imagine that this will work. So it's not real yet for you. And you doubt that, oh, is Scrum real? Can it really work? Of course, Scrum can work, but you also have to be able to envision it, to imagine it before you can do it and be effective. And I think we often struggle with this lack of imagination. The problem is not so much with methods or frameworks like Scrum or Kanban. The problem is that it's so hard for us as humans to imagine things. So what I want to do is to invite you to imagine things today, and some radical things. The last time, 8 years ago, I spoke at Agile Turkey. I could not tell you how long it would take to transform any organization from non-agile to agile. Today, I can promise you, I know how long it takes to transform any organization in Turkey and beyond, internationally, everywhere. We know exactly how long it takes because we have learned a lot in the last 8 years about how to transform. Now, for starters, do not believe in anything that I say. Okay? You don't have to believe me. Figure it out for yourself. Read the books. And in the last 8 years, I wrote a couple of books. You might have to read them too to get into it, but I invite you today to think about it. Now, here's the starting point. My topic today is how to turn any organization decentralized, democratic, and agile. So these are like the grand letters of today's talk. Decentralized, democratic, agile. We all want democracies, democratic countries and societies. I'm sure we all want that in every part of the world. And surely we want to have democratic workplace. So even if our societies are not that democratic, we want democratic workplace. I assume that. We do not want authoritarian. Here's the thing. Organizations are stuck. Now, yesterday, for example, on Twitter or Mastodon, I heard some people say that there are many ways of organizing. I believe that is not true. If you hear people say there are many ways of organizing, I don't think that they mean many ways of organizing. They mean many tools, many expressions, facets. Every company is different. Every organization is different, right? And public sector, private sector, industry, services, banks, and so on. Of course, every organization is different from each other. Of course, right? And organizations are different from moment to moment, week to week, year to year as well. But here's the thing. And I said this 8 years ago, and I will repeat today. There are only two fundamental ways of organizing organizations. Okay. Do not believe in anything that I say, but this is still true. So do not believe it, but think about it. I'd like you to reflect about it. So here's the thing. There are only two ways of organizing. You might call the left alpha, and the right one beta. Those are the names that I use. Alpha, beta. But you can also call this one pyramid, and you call this peach. All right. Pyramid and peach. It's a funny way of talking about these models. But you can also call the model on the right decentralized, democratic, and agile. Okay, here's the thing. I believe this. You don't have to believe it, of course. I believe. I'm absolutely convinced. I'm absolutely sure. From science as well. Complexity science, sociology, philosophy, psychology, human psychology. We know that this model is not decentralized. It is not democratic. And it is not agile. So let's figure out what it is. Let's call it. This model is not decentralized. This model is centralized. Okay. I can prove this very easily. This is the way most organizations are run, of course, right? I think we all know this model. It's organized in silos of functions and departments, and people at the top make decisions and then drive commands down the organization. So people at the top decide, and there is steering and decision making at the top, and receiving commands, execution, implementation, these stuff happen at the bottom. Or in other ways, at the top there is thinking. Only at the top there is thinking, and at the bottom there's doing. This is the old way of organizing from the industrial age, and it worked well enough. Of course, it is not agile at all. So let's say this is not decentralized, this model. It is centralized because decision making is made at the top. All right, I think we can agree on this. Yeah, most organizations have an org chart that expresses this, and you have the processes and the tools, and we know that it is not democratic either. I would call it authoritarian today. Authoritarian, right? You can call it in different ways. You can call it a nastier way, like dictatorships or so. But let's say to leave it, let's say, reasonable, let's call it authoritarian. And it's certainly non-agile. It is quite irresponsive, or it's not very responsive, right? Not very agile. So here's the thing. We have a way of organizing, and here I think you already figured this out from what I drew, from what I'm showing you, that this is what most organizations are doing, and the model on the right, it's what few organizations are doing. I think this is obvious, right? Because if I told you, this kind of organization, in order to run itself, it needs budgets, it needs fixed targets, it needs incentives and bonus systems, It needs department heads, and bosses are very important, of course, and it has committees. If I told you what kind of artifacts and methods or waterfall software development, of course, comes from this kind of thinking. So this is the way organizations, most organizations, have been organizing themselves for 100 years, 150 years, right? Since the dawn of the industrial age, organizations have adopted this model, not democratic, not decentralized, not agile. And here's the problem. Here's the problem. And I will talk about you, everybody attending today. And this is not personal. I'm just trying to invite you to reflect. You probably believe that this model here is normal. And that is the worst. If you believe that this model is normal, you are doomed. And here's the problem with the Agile movement. This is the 10th edition of this event. I think that's fantastic. And it's year number 2024, I think, of the Agile movement. That's great. And we have achieved a lot. But here's the problem with Agile. We have tried to make Scrum and Kanban and Lean and all the Agile stuff. Predominantly, we have tried to make it happen in this model. We have tried to create islands of Agile happiness, so to speak. We have tried to bring agility to this world, to this model, to this kind of authoritarian, centralized, agile, unresponsive mindset. And I wouldn't say that we have failed. We have created islands of happiness, but not more than that. We have not transformed entire organizations to this model. Instead, we have brought agility to the wrong model. And here's the problem. In a non-agile model, agile life is impossible. Many of you know this, I'm sure. Most of you, or maybe all of you, secretly you know this at least, that something is wrong with the way we're doing agile. You know, we have to put too much energy in it, too many agile coaches, too much Scrum mastery, too much safeguarding the little progress we have made so that it doesn't fall back. Yeah? We need to put a lot of energy into our islands of happiness, agile islands of happiness, to make some Scrum and Kanban or Lean or whatever you do stick. So here's the thing. We are putting lots of energy into agility today to make it survive the little plants of agility that we have planted over the last 25 years. We have to put a lot of energy in to protect these little plants. Otherwise, they will soon fade away. I think we cannot go on like that. It's not even worth doing it like that. We have to take another approach. And here's the thing. Can you believe, this is what Pablo Picasso said, can you believe that every organization can and should be agile? And here's the thing, I can believe it. You don't have to believe me, but you can believe this. I believe that every organization as a whole, the whole system, can be agile like this. Yeah. Here's the thing. What company is like this? We haven't discussed this yet, right? I will talk about this in a moment. But companies like Toyota, which has been a strong influence on the Agile movement from the beginning. Agile software development owes a lot to its history, to its origins, to Toyota. Other companies as well, like Southwest Airlines in the United States, W.L. Gore, DM Drogeriemarkt, a large retail company from Germany, or a health organization, Burtok from the Netherlands, with tens of thousands of people now. There are cases of this company. There are few, but they exist. So what we know is this model exists. A decentralized, highly democratic, highly agile organizational model exists. But so far, most companies are struggling with not changing the system, but trying to bring better tools and better systems, Scrum and Agile and so on, to their command and control organizations. This is another way to call this model. You can call it pyramid, but it's also called command and control, or you can call it Taylorism. Yeah. So my suggestion for the next 8 years is to not dedicate all our energy to making Agile survive in a non-Agile world or context of non-Agile command and control organizations. My invitation to you is to believe that we can transform entire organizations to beta, to this world, to a better world, to a really agile world. I think I should explain a little bit to you how this model works, right? Briefly, I will try to make this very brief so that we can then discuss how to make the transformation happen. Is that okay? So I will zoom into it. Zoom. Again, do not believe what I'm saying, but this is complexity science, systems theory. Yeah, systems theory tells us a very interesting thing about complexity. It teaches us that organizations are in fact not pyramids. The pyramid model of organizing, with all its supposed order and normality, which it is not. It is totally uncontrolled, uncontrollable, chaotic. Alpha organizations or normal organizations in Turkey and everywhere in the world, if you're organized with budgeting, planning, departments, decision-making at the top, decision-making in meetings, which is a terrible idea, yeah, with incentive systems, individual targets, a lot of control, yeah, with a lot of steering, also through, by the way, agile scaling frameworks like SAFe. Most of what SAFe is today in command and control organizations is steering, controlling from the top down. So we cannot make agility on a team base happen in command and control. And even through scaling, we are only connecting the pyramid organization through a different model. Again, we are strengthening hierarchy and functional steering and command and control. So we have to move beyond, right? How does this work? And here is the logic of systems theory. If you look at organizations not as machines, which is a terrible idea, but as systems, then an organization looks like a peach. Yeah? This is a systemic theory 101. This is a systemic theory fact. Yeah? So what's outside of it? This is the organizational boundary, all right? The boundary of an organization is like the skin of the peach. Yeah, so you see here, there's a pit. This is a little large for real peach. The pit would be smaller, but it's a little large, okay? And here's the flesh. That's the good part of the peach that you can eat, yeah? And here's the boundary of the organization, right? Like the skin of the peach. And what's outside, this is called the market, okay? The market is outside the organization. When markets turn complex and dynamic, they start to take over the steering. And this is a very important systems theory, systems thinking, complexity science phenomenon. Markets take over the steering when markets become complex. If there are many, many competitors in the market, then clients who are also in the market become more picky, more choosy, more challenging to organizations. So the market, in complexity, the market starts pulling. When did this happen, that markets turn complex? That happened in the 1970s and 80s. In Turkey and everywhere else in the world, markets turned complex in the 1970s and 80s. Yeah. It was a process of just a few decades, 1 or 2 decades. And since then, markets have been complex. I think all your organizations and you personally, you probably feel how there's complexity and dynamics and volatility and surprise in the markets everywhere. Yeah. But what happened with this shift to complexity in markets is that before the 1970s, the center of an organization was capable of steering the organization intelligently, right? People at the center, managers here at the center, they were able to steer the organization with targets and budgets and strategy and planning and long-term planning and short-term planning and reorganizations and all this kind of stuff. Sometimes when I talk on conferences, I swear a little, so I would say all this kind of shit, but I would not do this today. Today, it's all this kind of stuff, the steering stuff. Yeah, the steering stuff, it worked until the 1970s or 80s. Do not believe what I'm saying, but this is a fact. Yeah. Then complexity came back into markets, after the end of the industrial age. Markets turned complex again. And the steering from organization centers collapsed. So what we have today is that most organizations, most managers insist on the steering, and the markets are also steering. And that means that's a terrible idea. When the center steers and the market steers against it, poof. And you see this in many organizations. Most corporate scandals are about the market is steering and there's counter steering through budgets, processes, rules, guidelines, policies, committees, and so on. Many steering, and even SAFe is used for steering, yeah, or scaling frameworks like less and so on. They are all used for steering. So steering against market steering, an organization implodes or explodes. Because then, of course, actions in the periphery become schizophrenic. You cannot act accordingly to internal steering and external steering, or usually these forces are opposed. So what is the solution for organizations today? Today, organizations should accept that markets are steering them, and organizations should or must stop to steer internally. So we must give up planning, budgeting, waterfall, of course, committees, project management. It doesn't make any sense. We need agile teams that are highly autonomous. Here's an agile team. But this is an agile team in the center, in the periphery, but there are also agile teams, or let's call them agile, self-organized, autonomous teams. They can be in the center or in the periphery, right? There are two types of autonomous teams that we need. Some in the periphery, some in the center. Now, test question, just for yourself to think in your head, which part of the organization should be in charge? The center or the periphery? I mean, ultimately, the market is in charge. It's obvious, right? If markets are in charge, then in an organization, this is the boundary of the organization. If markets are in charge and if markets steer the organization, the market only touches the periphery, right? And the periphery, teams in the periphery serve the market to create value. And then clients, they pay a bill, they pay an invoice. So that's where the money comes from in an organization, right? Who pays our salaries in an organization? If we work at an organization, any kind of organization, who pays the bill? The client. That happens through this relationship here at the boundary between market and periphery. So the periphery creates value for the external client. And what should the center do if the center should not do any steering? And this is the reality of Toyota, Southwest Airlines, Handelsbanken, Aldi, DM Drogeriemarkt, Bürzorg, Morningstar, all these great agile organizations that you probably have heard of already. Yeah. What is the role of the center there? Not steering. They cannot have power. You have to take the power from them. And what then is their role? To serve the periphery so that the periphery can serve the external client. So the center becomes servant of the periphery, and the periphery serves the external client. Very simple model, right? Very simple model. This model is like market economics, like a market economy. It's the most natural thing there is in the world, because maybe you have heard of the Soviet Union. That was a long time ago, right? More than 30 years ago, it ended. They had a planned economy like this, the pyramid organization, right? That's also a planned economy, Soviet-style planned economy. Steering, budgeting, planning, resource allocation, cost management. You need, in this world, you need none of that. No cost management required. Why? Because every cell in the periphery and the center here will try to reduce waste, reduce cost, and drive up value creation, sales, and this stuff. They will all work and act like mini companies within the organization. Here's the thing. This model is the future of work. This model, the pyramid or alpha or command and control model, has no place in the future of work. It belongs on the garbage heap of history, to the cemetery with it, please. We need to bury it. We need to eliminate it. We need to drive out the bad ghost of command and control thinking from our organization. We need to expel this kind of thinking from our organizations. Why? Not because I'm telling you so, not because, maybe sometimes you have thought that Scrum isn't so great. Every week or so, I think that, and also colleagues tell me, Scrum could be much better. After 20 years of development, Scrum could be much better. I believe it could be much better, but Scrum is still good. Don't get me wrong. Scrum is good. It works. I don't think it's brilliant. It could be much better now after 20 years, but still it's very good. And the problem is not if Scrum is good or if Kanban is better or if Lean is better. We should not discuss this. All these concepts or approaches to agile work are good. They are certainly good enough to work, and they can work very well in this kind of environment. They just do not work so well in this kind of environment. And in this kind of environment, there is an epic battle between our efforts to make agility stick and the command and control organization. You know, command and control, authoritarianism and centralization and bureaucracy, it wants to bite. So we have command and control trying to bite, and we have agility, which has to fight back. So it's an epic battle. Yeah. Don't believe what I'm saying, but I think you're experiencing, most of you are likely to experience this battle every day, every week, every month, every year. Yeah. My invitation to you is to believe that there is a way to get beyond that. Now, I can imagine that some of you might be thinking, well, okay, this kind of thing seems to make worse, seem to make sense. Decentralization. Have a democratic organization. By the way, this is decentralized. We should just wrap this up. This is decentralized. You see it, right? The periphery should be in charge. This part of the organization should be in charge, and the center should be serving the periphery so that the periphery could serve the market. Yeah? So organizations like Toyota, Handelsbanken, the periphery is in charge, and clients feel that the periphery is in charge because the periphery can make decisions. They own the money, they own their time, they own their resources, they are autonomous, and clients feel that. Whenever we transform an organization to better, the client satisfaction always goes up in the very first month. In the very first month, things seem different to the client because the periphery does not wait for orders or control or decision making to happen from the center. So they become more responsive, more agile. Just by becoming more autonomous, client satisfaction grows. And it's not a miracle, it's for logical reasons. We must liberate the periphery from the shackles of command and control and steering, and everybody will be happier. Of course, the center will have to learn how to serve the periphery. Right? Here's the thing. This model is decentralized. I hope you understand this. Do not believe what I'm saying, but I hope you understood this. This model is democratic. How is the Peach model democratic? This model is democratic because everyone makes decisions. Everybody can think and act. Let's take the example of Toyota. At Toyota in the 1970s became world famous because there the workers could make decisions and improve their work. They could do Kaizen. Of course, Kanban also comes from Toyota, but Kaizen, the idea of continuous improvement of the work. Like teams at Toyota, they need to produce cars, but they also have to improve the work. It's always part of their work. They need nobody else, no experts, no agile coaches to improve their work. They must do it for themselves. They are authorized, and it's a demand to them that they improve the work, that they do Kaizen. This is why at Toyota, you do not need supervision, you do not need steering, you do not need production planning, you do not need smart department heads, and no scaling framework. Yeah. It works because the periphery is in charge. This model works because the periphery becomes authorized in order to become autonomous. This means that everyone in the periphery, in these teams, and periphery cells and center cells, it means you have 5 to 8 people, right? You might have 4, you might have 9 people, but this should be an exception. Usually, teams are small in this kind of model. So an organization with 10,000 people is likely to have 2,000 cells. Yeah. Or 1,700 cells or something like that. Yeah. So this is democratic because everybody needs to think. Everybody needs to make decisions. The periphery becomes autonomous. Every team becomes like a highly autonomous mini enterprise. By the way, if you want to read more about this, there's more about this in this book. All right, you can buy it in print or better even as an ebook. So if you want more details, there's much more details in the book, but I'm trying to wrap this up here for you on this page. So democratic, it is democratic because everybody acts like a citizen, like an entrepreneur within many businesses, all right? It is not, people here in this model do not receive commands and orders all the time, yeah? And why is this agile? Because the agility is built into every part of the organization. Take waterfall software development organization. In waterfall software development organization, the problem is not bosses. The problem is that you have sliced the organization usually between different departments like architecture, development, and testing. That kind of thing, you know? And once you slice organization, once you functionally divide an organization like that, being it a software development organization or an entire company, if you slice an organization into functions, then nobody can ever think holistically again. Everybody will only think about the slices and serving bosses and meeting their targets. So you cannot really make a sliced, functionally divided departmental organization with business units and so on. You cannot make it agile. How is this organization agile? Because teams here are multifunction. They will ideally sell their services to external clients. They will do the software architecture, they will do the development, if it's a software organization, of course, and they will do the testing, and they will put it, you know, into production. Some things they will not be able to, and they will write their own invoice to the client, by the way, right? So this end-to-end, the idea of sales is that it's end-to-end value creation, yeah. Of course, as a periphery, sell in the periphery, we also need some internal services, like some bookkeeping, some financial closing, maybe some legal services also, yeah. So all this kind of helps. A periphery cell can buy it from the center. A periphery cell does not need a budget. It does not need cost management from nowhere. It has its own resources, and it will buy services from the center, you know, HR services, for example, accounting, and so on. Yeah. So this is how this organization works. It's decentralized, it's democratic, it's agile, and there is no secret to it. Every organization, large and small, can get to this form. All right. I hope that you do not believe what I'm saying, but I hope that you follow the logic. Yeah. So what did we discuss? We discussed there are two ways of organizing. I said that there are no other fundamental ways of organizing. There are many tools. I will not mention them because they are all sad. There are many, many tools that supposedly offer alternative ways of organizing. But these tools or concepts or approaches or frameworks, here's the thing. Some of them end with ASCII, for example. They end with ASCII. They have a name, ASCII. Yeah? They are just command and control reloaded. They are not this model, they are this model. They claim to, this model, by the way, and maybe your company claims to improve self-organization and create the future of work through beautifying this model. But it's just putting lipstick on a dirty model, on a bad model. Yeah. Dressing it in new clothes. Let's not accept that. Alpha is doomed. In alpha, the problem is not that, and here's an important thing. Many of you may think, from what I said, that managers are the problem. I cannot hear you saying it out loud. Yeah, I cannot see you writing it in the chat, but you might write it into the chat and share this and so on and discuss it at this point. But here's the thing. Managers are not the problem. Managers are, I will write this in very strong letters. Managers are, this doesn't work. Okay, try it again. Managers are not the problem. Very important. Managers are not the problem. How do I know? Well, more generally, by the way, people are not the problem. Do not believe what I'm saying, but I'm totally sure people are not the problem. Managers are not the problem. Here's again. Let me repeat this. I believe every organization can be transformed from this model, which seems to be normal in most organizations in Turkey, and I'm in Germany right now. It's the same in Germany, in the United States, everywhere in the world. Most organizations are command and control. It's so popular. This model has become so popular. It's not good. It hasn't been good since the 1970s. It's like the zombie organizational model, right? And zombies want to bite back. They become, for example, the Spotify model. I think the Spotify model is totally command and control. Totally command and control. It's trying to stack another pyramid on the old pyramid. Safe in a way. It wants to deal with this kind of organization's lack of complexity by linking it better, by improving hierarchy and bureaucracy and steering. That is not the way forward. The way forward is to decentralize organizations, to make them more agile and more democratic. And not sure what you think about SAFe, but SAFe doesn't make organizations more democratic. It makes centralized steering more effective in a way, and supervision and control of agile teams. But it doesn't decentralize. It doesn't make organizations democratic. And we need to do that. Don't get me wrong. You can get some improvements from Scrum and SAFe and less and so on, and Kanban in this world. You can get improvements, but it's only like 20% of what you can get, while here you can have 1,000% of improvement. And not by switching the people or changing the people, but by switching to a better system. Democracy is powerful, as you may know. Yeah? Authoritarianism works only for a while, then it spirals out of control and creates a huge fucking mess. Democracy. People are never satisfied in democracy, but it works much better. And a beta organization, which is what I'm suggesting to all of you to create, people will never be satisfied. It will be continuous. They will have to continuously rework it and change it and improve it so that it gets better and better and better for a long time. Toyota has been doing this for 70 years now. Handelsbank has been improving their beta model, and they have decentralized for more than 50 years now, having become Europe's most successful bank for 5 decades. Imagine that. For 5 decades, Handelsbanken has been Europe's most successful bank. You can check the numbers. Do not believe what I'm saying. Toyota has been the world's most successful car manufacturer for also 6 decades or something like that. Yeah. Why? Because Japanese are better people? No. Their model is just much better. It is more disciplined. It is more agile. It's more decentralized. It uses people's brains much better than command and control. So here's the thing. Do not believe in anything that I say, but what I try to suggest to you today is to get rid of command and control and steering and create organizations that do not know top-down, bottom-up, hierarchical relationships, but where the center serves the periphery so that the periphery can serve the market. So instead of thinking an organization as a top-down pyramid, let's try to think it at an outside-in pitch. All right? That's the suggestion. Here's the second suggestion. Transformation can be done everywhere with few consultants. I am a consultant, yeah, but I tell you, the more consultants you employ and use, the less likely you can do this kind of shift. Why? Because of course this model is all about autonomy, about consciousness and self-responsibility, people taking responsibility. If you have many consultants doing the transformation, then you lose people will lose autonomy. It's like consultants are a little bit like bosses telling people what to do. You cannot have that in transformation. And here's the thing. Over the last 5 years, we discovered a way to do this kind of transformation from alpha to beta, from command and control to decentralization, from non-democratic to democratic, to do it. And here's the secret to the whole story. The more you create democratic, decentralized, agile organization, the faster the change gets. Maybe you have yourself experienced this in your agile work. Sometimes Scrum and Kanban and so on, they work, they stick. And then you notice that things the level of performance can really raise very strongly, exponentially, it feels, With this kind of organizational approach that I'm suggesting to this model, if you employ the principles of this model to the change itself, then it will only take 90 days. You can have a Turkish telecoms company, and I know there are large telecoms companies in Turkey with maybe 10,000, 20,000 people. It doesn't matter. You can have 20,000 people in your organization, by the way, here, 20,000 people, and transform it. It still only takes 90 days. How does this work? How can I know that transformation takes only 90 days? If you let the 20,000 people do the work of, this is one of the prepositions. the people in the organization, let's say 20,000 people, they will do the transformation themselves with very few consultants, little external help. What's the second secret? Everybody, all the 20,000 in this case, should be invited right at the start to take responsibility for the transformation and to do it together. We call this method open space beta. Beta, because beta is this model, right? This model, I call it beta. It's the opposite of alpha. Yeah? Why is it called open space beta? Because you do 2 open space conferences in this model. You do one. This was a little bit tough to do during COVID, by the way, but still we managed to do it with a couple of clients. You begin in open space, you end in open space. So this is a concept that actually was influenced strongly by sprints in Agile. Yeah? Remember the idea of the sprint in Agile software development? It's to lower the risk and to get rid of planning. What we call sprint planning isn't really planning. It's just preparing for the sprint so that we can work for, let's say, 2 weeks. So you prepare, you think it through. Yeah, you think about what you will do. Basically, you do not organize how to do the things. You just think about what will we do, what can we achieve realistically and potentially in 2 weeks, in 14 days. And then you do the sprint and then you evaluate and look back at what you have achieved and you learn. So you have less planning and steering, or no planning and steering actually, because teams can do the sprint preparation for themselves. Yeah. So a sprint is a 14 days, can be 7 days, but let's assume this standard time frame that's usually used, 14 days, a 14 days episode or time frame of developing software. Now we took this concept, a colleague from the United States, Niels Pflaeging, he had the idea to adopt the sprint concept and transfer to organizational development. So what if you could develop an organization together with 20,000 people, in this case that I made up. So it would be a big company for Turkey, right? 20,000 people, yeah? But it could be 200,000 people potentially. It doesn't make much of a difference. Imagine you can do the organizational transformation, the change of the system. So turn the authoritarian system into a democracy. You would do it with 20,000 people potentially. You would invite them to come together on this day to discuss what to do the sprint planning, not really planning, but preparation of the 90 days. They come together, yeah, by invitation. This is important. You do not force them. You have to have an invitation that people can accept or decline. This must be voluntary. So people show up voluntarily or not at this conference. So there might not be 20,000, there might be 18,000 or 15,000, okay? But with those people together, you do the transformation in 90 days. They can do it themselves, right? Continue the work, of course, and do the transformation. So many people, transformation can be fast. The understanding is created well before. Do I still have time, my friends?
We have some questions for you, Niels.
Oh, that's great.
You can go on. Of course, you can go on.
Give me half a minute. Give me half a minute,
Okay,
then we talk about the questions. So imagine doing organizational transformation with all the willing, time boxed, very fast, and then do a giant retrospective after 90 days and look back at what you have achieved. This is the future of organizational development. This is the future of work, really, because one thing I can tell you before we get to the questions, this model will not take us into the future. This model is dead. It's gone. It's a dead parrot. It stinks. It's like a dead horse. Yeah? This will not take us in the future. We should not aim at making Agile happen in this model. We should aim at making agility happen in entire organizations in this model and get us there. Let's get to the questions, my friends, my facilitating friends. Where are you? Let's talk about the questions, if you have questions.
We are here. Thank you for your great speech, Niels. It was really informative for us. I personally took many notes, actually. But
by the way, more about this concept of transformation is here in this book and online. You can look for it online. You don't have to buy the book, but Open Space Beta, that's the name of the concept. Look it up online. You find a lot of material. Okay. Yeah.
Great suggestion.
Questions?
Thank you. So we have some questions, but I guess one thing is pretty sure that, as you mentioned, both command and control and pyramid type organizations will not have a place in the future of work, right? Since we have a motto of welcoming the future of work, I guess one of the key points of this presentation is the pyramid structure and command and control is dead, I guess, right?
Yes. And we cannot change that. We cannot get the world, I mean, the world is more complex than it was 50 years ago. The world of business is much more complex. That's a fact. Yeah? And there is another fact. Human nature, humans, people, we deserve better than this model. I think everybody deserves this model. This should be, we should call this normal, and we should call this an abomination of reality. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have some questions for you, Niels. Actually, I chose two of them. First one is, what do you recommend to the Agile leaders when transforming into decentralized organization? What are your suggestions for Agile leaders in terms of behavior, in terms of attitude?
I think there's no problem with. I do not like to talk of Agile leaders. I think the word leader is already reminiscent of this model. Mm-hmm. I think managers exist, and managers are not the problem and so on, but leaders, I do not like the idea of leaders, because in this model, everybody must be human and citizen and so on, and entrepreneurial. But what I can do is, I recommend to managers today, and to anyone really, to learn about this model and to learn about this kind of transformation. That's my recommendations. The problem is not that managers are bad people. The problem is that in this model, they have to do steering and commanding and be brutal and evaluate people and do budgeting and do performance appraisal. Horrible things that do not exist in this kind of organization. I think leaders, top managers, company owners, anyone really, should help do let's make the transformation happen. The problem is not you or your behaviors or your character. The problem is that in a terrible system, there is no good behavior.
Okay, yep. Perfect. Then I move on to my next question. What about the tone of the managers in case they want to act like periphery and take the role and authority of periphery? You mentioned about releasing the power, but if managers try to take control of the periphery, what can happen? What can we do in order to avoid that?
Well, having an important role in the periphery means being in the business and in one team. And that's great. If managers want to return into business, that's wonderful. But in this kind of organization, they cannot have power. I mean, we cannot give, let's put it like this. If you have many, many managers with power here, some of them will probably think this is a good thing for them, and others will think it's not so good for me, for my career. Yeah? They will move on, which is okay. Because let's not forget this, a command and control organization, and remember, most organizations in Turkey are command and control organizations. Command and control organizations bleed talented people out every day. They lose the best people all the time because command and control sucks. Yeah? So command and control organizations lose excellent people every day. If some people leave during the transformation, which takes 90 days, that's okay, because some people, it's okay, some people always leave. Yeah? But you know, what you cannot allow in this kind of organization is that the center steers the periphery, which is why, and I think this is the answer to the question, really, how to avoid that managers continue to centralize power. Yeah? How to avoid that? And the answer is simple. All processes for centralized steering needs to be eliminated. You have to eliminate, to get from here to there, you need to eliminate budgeting, cost management, performance appraisal, annual performance appraisal of people, that we eliminate this always in this kind of transformation. You eliminate fixed targets, incentive and bonus systems. You eliminate, not the pay. You pay people in the same amount of money, but you make variable salaries and bonuses fixed. Yeah? So you eliminate also the reporting that managers use to steer the organization. You eliminate the committees and many of the meetings that managers use to steering. And if you take away these mechanisms, you will see that managers are normal people and that they can behave like normal people, useful people. Yeah? And I think this is the secret. Managers are not the problem, but the systems we have created force them into terrible behavior. Like everyone.
That's a great answer, thank you. So I have one last question, actually. You mentioned about the tools, the processes, HR processes, performance management, appraisals, etc. Is it really possible to transform all this stuff in just 90 days? It seems really difficult.
Yeah, it's even better. You do not have to transform these things. Some of the things of these practices and tools, you just have to eliminate and abolish them for good. In our book here, we have an entire page of practices that need to go. I can share this. We can share this online to all conference participants, this page. You just have to eliminate all these practices, and you do not need, in fact, command and control organizations need steering. Yeah, otherwise, because most of the people are not supposed to think, the people at the bottom. So you need to steer them, give them orders and commands. If you authorize everyone to think and act at the same time, then people can make up their minds on themselves. The whole behavior patterns become much more intelligent, and you can abolish the steering mechanisms. Also the committees, the jour fixes, not sure how you call them in Turkey. We have a meeting every Friday or every Monday at 9 o'clock, this kind of thing. You can abolish it, and people have much more time to do productive work. So we really do not need to transform it. The hardest work in the 90 days of transformation is to create this new kind of cell structure. Yeah? This concept, we call it cell structure design. That's the hardest work to create and to abolish many practices. And yeah, some other things. And yeah, this way transformation is possible everywhere. We need to also get rid of many, many tools.
Yes, thank you so much. It was really enlightening for us. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for being there right with us.
Thank you for inviting me. I hope to be back. Next time we talk more about transformation or other things like learning, which I'm in love with. And I think learning is also a key of this. Thank you very much for the invitation.
See you. Bye-bye.